Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in to another great episode here at Primetime Sportz Talk. We are filling the day, which I'm sure you're aware by this point, of recap episodes. We're finally caught up to speed with the game that happened last night for the men at University of Alabama, Birmingham, the UAB Blazers. And I'm joined with Caleb Johnson, who is making his first appearance
on the
Primetime Sportz Talk desk. And the smile is a good sign.
Yeah, I'll go with like Rashad, and I'm excited to get in front of the camera to talk about the men's basketball team.
Right, and we're good. It's always good to have new people joining us here on the desk, and Caleb is one of our newer reporters this semester, so always good to see those people getting involved. Thanks for being here, Caleb.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, I could talk about you all the show probably, but let's talk about basketball.
Okay, I guess if we have to, I guess.
I know. Any Caleb fans out there, if you want a special that's just a show about Caleb, let us know in the comment section below the video later, and we will have a Caleb show.
Yeah.
Just in case. But if that actually happens, that's going to be a fun one to plan. Anyhow, let's get going. Georgia State basketball played University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Blazers, and it was an interesting game. You know, spoiler alert: Georgia State lost. Final score 57-64. And puts Georgia State on a 3-2 record for the year at this point. I'm not sure how I felt about the game yet. I mean, because neither team played particularly well.
Yeah.
Georgia State played worse of the two. I mean, 57-64. I mean, it's not a high-scoring game. It's not a low-scoring game. It's a little bit of an average score for college men's basketball. Maybe on the lower end of the average, but. Nothing really stands out because neither team played that well. Go ahead.
I really expected more from Georgia State. I really expected them to come out to play strong. You know, they've started great with the season. I really expected more from them playing UAB. I didn't see it.
Well, their all-time record against UAB isn't exactly in their favor, is it?
No, it is not. And now with this loss, that puts them at 7-2 all time. And it's surprising that they've only played, that a few amount of times, being 2.5 hours away.
Sure, that's true. Right, and they're both kind of urban city schools and things like that, come from a similar mold. And it's UAB's, what's the number? It's their 12th consecutive, I think their 12th consecutive home win. Coming from last year leading into this year, which puts them in the top 20 best home records in the country. So I think Georgia State was probably aware of that going in, and they knew UAB plays well at home, and they were up for a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, but, just starting out early, I mean, Georgia State got the first 2 points off a nice dunk. But then following that, it was just UAB. They just continued to rack up the points. Georgia State seemed to rack up the fouls.
Yes. Who was it that got fouled like 4 times or 3 times in the first 4 minutes?
TJ Shipes. He gets 3 fouls in the first 4 minutes.
Which was unbelievable. They pulled him off the court after a while. He needed to take a seat, calm down. He was going to foul out in the first 10 minutes.
He ends up playing only 12 minutes in the entire game. After that, I think that's got to be a huge reason why. I don't think it was necessarily his fault for the fouls. Listening to some of the commentary made some iffy calls, but it was just the fact that it was so quick right off the bat it's not a good sign for Georgia State.
That's a good note you made there. Caleb said listening to the commentary because this game wasn't even actually televised.
No, it was not.
It was only played on the radio.
Yes.
So it was fortunate it was free broadcast over there on Panther Vision, but we didn't get a chance to actually see the guys play. Maybe we should make that clear.
Yes.
I don't know how many Georgia State fans actually drove to UAB. Not that bad of a drive. I would expect if I was watching the game, I expect probably see a fair few amount of blue jerseys in the stands, just because of how close it is, respectively, to some of the other schools that we play.
Yes, definitely.
But it was all radio broadcast, so a lot of this stuff we didn't get to see for ourselves, which might have an effect on our perspective. But we can only go with what we were given.
Yes, so shout out to 1340, the fan, Dave Cohen out there.
Yeah, Dave Cohen, the legendary Dave Cohen.
Yes, getting to call the game. I actually enjoyed, I hadn't listened to a Georgia State basketball game on the radio before, so that was the first time. And
same here, it was the first for me too.
Yeah, it was an enjoyable experience. Definitely not the same that you get visually, being able to see how players react.
Right, it does change and affect how we analyze the game.
Definitely.
Right.
Because we're looking at stats, we're hearing how the chemistry is going on the courts, and that's what we have.
I think a good example of that was a few episodes ago now when Rashad and I did a commentary on the women's game. And it was like 90-99, and the stats looked great, but you had to see the game to really understand the perspective of the game, which makes a difference. But moving on to the actual game,
yes,
the stat line it's a little bit shaky because I mentioned already neither team played particularly well. I think you made a good point that there were some fouls that, at least over the radio, didn't seem like they were necessarily necessary fouls. Maybe there was a little bit of a bias from the Georgia State broadcast crew, which is who we were listening to, which is always something to be aware of.
Yes.
I know, fast forwarding a little bit late into the game, I think it was Isaiah Dennis had what ended up being sort of a key foul when Georgia State was trying to make a comeback, and it forced the ball back into UAB hands, and they managed to extend the lead. And just over the broadcast, I hear, that was a really questionable call, wasn't a foul. The UAB player was running out of bounds, so he was giving himself up on the play, so there shouldn't have been a foul called or something of that nature. And, again, not seeing it on TV, hard for me to earn a true perspective. But little things like that throughout the game that constantly seem to halt Georgia State's momentum.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Isaiah Dennis, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but
or the Mercedes maybe.
Yeah. That would be more of his case. But if there was anyone to throw under the Mercedes, it would definitely have to be Isaiah Dennis for the game. It was rough. I mean, you look at his stats and 1 point.
And we're making a comment about the Mercedes. If anybody watching that wasn't aware, that at the start of the season, head coach Ron Hunter made mention that Isaiah Dennis was receiving the keys to the team, and he made a joke about it being a Mercedes because here at Georgia State we're a classy institution and we only drive Mercedes-Benz and all this stuff. So it was a good fit, and I think it forced a lot of energy into the fans, into the team as the season went on. But there were two things this game, I'll say three things this game that made it interesting for me. And you already brought up one. Isaiah Dennis had 1 point. Not one basket for 2 points. I mean 1 point. And he played 19 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not like he didn't get his opportunities. He had an assist. He had a turnover. He had a steal. But everything was ones across the board for him. And not only that, but he didn't even start.
Yes.
Right? Didn't start the game. And the thing in the pregame that was interesting for me to hear was Coach Hunter said something very matter of fact. And I know he intended it to be so matter of fact, but I didn't necessarily see it coming considering the way he gave Isaiah so much praise and responsibility at the beginning of the season when he came over the radio and said, Jeremy Hollowell is our best player. Everybody knows that. Right?
Well, and I mean, the stats don't lie when it comes to Hollowell. I mean, he led
the team in scoring.
Yeah, he's been playing the best out of anyone on the team. I see Isaiah Dennis, may have been the one expected to kind of carry the team throughout the season, but Hollowell's definitely plugged that hole, taken over that role, and he has been fun to watch to see him play, but just Isaiah Dennis, just 19 minutes, 1 point, just disappointing.
So are you saying a little bit that you think the keys have been taken away from Isaiah?
I would definitely say yes.
Is it too soon to say that only 5 games in with a 3-2 record? I mean, they're not playing terrible basketball. They haven't had a particularly bad game, like really all season. They've had 2 losses, but neither of the losses have been embarrassing. Right.
No,
neither of the losses have been particularly season-crushing or momentum-crushing.
They've been against good basketball teams.
They have been against good. I mean, again, UAB had 11 consecutive home wins going into this game. So they certainly know how to play there, and it was going to be a tough contest just understanding that statistic going in. So, is it too early to take the keys from Isaiah, truthfully?
I just think, in these 5 games that we've seen, Hollowell has just really impressed me. And being a transfer from Indiana, he's come from playing on a very talented basketball team.
Yes.
And I think coming into Georgia State, he's just really taken on that role just as an all-around player.
So excuse me, Hollowell is driving the Mercedes now.
Yes.
Is what you think?
Hollowell is definitely.
Wow. Amazing. I almost hope for Isaiah Dennis's sake that changes.
Okay.
Because I think that Everybody heard about the Mercedes thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that follows Georgia State basketball heard about the Mercedes thing, right? It happened. And I don't want Isaiah to mentally lose his game because he's so I don't know if he's actually caught up in this. I mean, it's almost a little unprofessional to be caught up in something like that sort of comment. But I just fear that it would affect him because he's got game.
Yeah.
He can ball.
Yeah.
He has it in his system, right? But to be so lackluster, especially in a game when if you're going to drive the team through the season, right, to keep with the metaphor, you're going to drive the team through the season, and you need a comeback. And late in the game, they brought it within 3, right? And I don't even know if Isaiah was on the court then, but to not have the ball in his hands after the preseason praise, a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
A little bit concerning.
Yeah.
So for Isaiah Dennis's sake, I do hope that he finds his footing again.
Well, because he is the flashy guy.
Right.
GSU Jam jumping over the
jumped over the airplane. Right, to dunk. Didn't just jump over and jumped over the airplane to dunk. Right.
Yeah, but so he's the flashy guy. He's the guy that you want to see. Kobe Bryant-esque. Playing that flashy basketball.
Right.
But just I haven't seen it, and I haven't been impressed.
Well, let's talk about some more of these raw numbers then, because obviously Isaiah scoring 1 point. Team lost, and there were other players that had some issues too, because by the end of the game, we'll just fast forward to the end here, 55.6% from the free throw line for Georgia State, and from the free throw line for UAB, 75.9%. It's a 20.3% spike for UAB to the free-point line compared to Georgia State, and it left 8 points on the board for Georgia State, and it was a 6-point loss.
Yeah.
So David mentioned it before in previous episodes. Free throws win ball games.
Yeah, and on this note, definitely got to give a shout out to Robert Brown from UAB. He was a perfect 4 for 4 on the game. It was that was impressive.
That matters. It does matter.
Yeah.
Not to mention the 3-point shooting. I mean, first of all, neither team was good at 3-point shooting.
No.
I mean, Georgia State went 3 for 13, and UAB was 6 for 20.
Yeah.
Right? So neither team could hit it from beyond the arc. But when it came down to who was drawn to the line, and of course the statistics for free throws are a little bit jaded to the side of UAB because obviously as a basketball game goes on, when you're the losing team, you foul the winning team, hope they miss their free throws at the end of the game, right? Kind of stops the clock and hopefully gives you a chance if they miss their free throws to cover some ground in the points margin. But clearly, UAB didn't really care too much about that, shooting 22 for 29.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I'm not accustomed to seeing from Georgia State basketball is in moments like this, when it's so close, there's just not one guy that can come in and truly just take over the game. Right? I don't see a lot of the same person, getting the ball passed to him, and he kind of resets the offense at the top of the line, right? And he's calling his hand signals and he's doing his thing as he should do as a leader and sort of orchestrating. It's a little bit of a mix of a lot of players, and to be honest, there's pros and cons to either one, right? I think David made another comment in a previous episode where he said that the Georgia State Panthers this year are going to look a little bit more like the Atlanta Hawks, where
Very true.
You're going to see not necessarily one guy every single game in crunch time come out and make a difference. It's going to be a team effort, right? But how much of a team effort did Georgia State really have when you have some guys supposed to be driving your Mercedes score a point, right? I mean, granted, they had a 15-point shooter, an 11-point shooter, and a 12-point shooter. I think a big change in the game, you want to talk about leadership, Jeremy Hallowell fouling out in the final 5 minutes of the game when he looked like it was hot. And again, not on TV, didn't get to watch it, not sure how legitimate the foul was. But point stands, if it's just raw about getting fouled, if you're supposed to obviously be the best player on the team, you have to compose yourself enough to keep yourself out of situations so you don't get fouled out, put your team in jeopardy late.
Yes.
I mean, if he was going in the last 5 minutes, he had the 4 fouls. I mean, if he's aware of that, he's not playing soft, right? But he's playing smart basketball. He's not just trying to be just forward and aggressive. Because at that point, again, they really only had like a 3-point loss.
But
there was no reason to get fouled out.
But I think it's difficult being a big man. They're going to get more of those calls and get they're going to rack up those fouls. As we saw with T.J. Shipes in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Big mans, they get the fouls called, and I definitely would have liked to have seen Hollowell finish the game, especially to be the points leader for the game, to be the points leader for the team so far this season. For him to foul out, to not be able to finish the game, you wonder what could have happened. We've got 64-57, so we're it's such a close game.
It really was. Right.
You're wanting to know what could have happened had he been in there.
And Georgia State had their moments where they really went on a good run. Early they were down by 12 points.
Yes.
And they closed it. And then it seemed like UAB pulled away again, and they closed it. But I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a single lead change all game. Maybe initially
at the beginning,
beginning.
At the very beginning, Georgia State took the lead. UAB took it away. Georgia State took it again, and after that, I think it was a 5-2 game at that point. Once UAB passed Georgia State, they
kept it all the way through.
Yes, they kept their foot on the gas and
wasn't lead changes when lead changes mattered.
Yeah, correct.
Right? And they kept bringing it back. Georgia State kept bringing it back, but they just couldn't quite cross the whole gap. And to UAB's credit, I think UAB played more athletic than Georgia State did. And I say that because how many alley-oop attempts did they have? Maybe like 5?
Yeah, I can't remember the number, but they weren't afraid to go up for them.
They were not afraid to do something poetic with the ball.
Yeah.
Do something, Sports Center top 10 kind of
Gets
thing.
the crowd going.
Exactly. And I think only one alley-oop even fell. Maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But they were trying, They were being aggressive. When they had the lead, they didn't back off and suddenly just play excessive defense.
There was no conservative play.
No conservative play. And they were I'm not trying to say it for any reason that the Georgia State basketball team is not athletic, right? These are collegiate Division I athletes. All of them are very athletic.
Yes.
But UAB clearly has good records at home, and it doesn't seem like they just ever took their foot off the gas. It doesn't ever seem like, no matter how much momentum Georgia State had coming up trying to close the gap, that UAB really ever honestly lost theirs.
Yeah.
Right? It was a consistency of high-intensity athleticism, right?
Yes.
And that made a lot of difference, I think.
But I think there is one thing to point out from the Georgia State side is a guy that you've mentioned before. You mentioned him at the very beginning of us doing these series of shows.
I did.
A guy that you say we should look out for.
He was my very first game ball recipient.
Yes, and then
right.
what do we see from him versus UAB?
He started the game.
Yes.
He started Malik Ben-Levy is the guy we're referring to, by the way.
Ben-Levy.
Malik Ben-Levy, freshman, first time on the team. I gave him the game ball we do at the end of every episode. He was my first game ball recipient of this series completely. And he started, and I was proud of him for getting the nod. I really was. Now, did his numbers, again, even like when I gave him the game ball, I admitted his numbers didn't necessarily show up on paper, right? He didn't necessarily, contribute intense to the scoreboard or anything like that. But he just plays physical.
Yes.
He plays hard on the board, right? He's a guy with a lot of good work ethic. And he allowed guys like, Jeremy Hollowell, Marcus Kreider, and all these guys, he was sort of the glue to kind of just maintain that sense of physicality when Georgia State needed it most. I was proud of him. I was glad he could do that. And I think it's just a continuous growth process for him. I expect to see him start more. I expect to see him contribute. Maybe still not quite in the points because, again, he's a freshman. He's got to get adjusted to the speed of the game and sort of the nature of Division I collegiate basketball. But I really still, to this day, I've never taken my foot off the gas on my praise for Malik Ben-Levy and his potential.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'll cross the gap and say that I've been validated by him starting. I think if we see it consistently, I'll take the gold star and be validated for it. But it was a good promise. I liked what I saw from the young guy, and I'm excited to see him play throughout. Definitely.
I found it so interesting for you to point him out at the beginning of these series of shows, and to see him start was interesting to watch.
It was interesting, and there's going to be a lot more good basketball to come. But before we get to more good basketball, we have to highlight 2 good players, one each, our game balls, right, for their good performance, even in a loss. Look, was it a low-scoring game? Maybe. Were the numbers that great? But people still played well.
Yes.
So, Caleb Johnson, as the first time on the show, you get to start with your game ball recipient. Who are you giving it to?
I am going to give it to Marcus Kreider. Okay, now he played 36 minutes, and in that 36 minutes he went 6 of 8, and he seemed to be everywhere. He was involved in steals. He had a steal. He had 2 blocks. He just seemed to be physically in the game with 5 rebounds. I liked what I saw from Marcus Kreider. It's just a consistent piece in the Georgia State team, especially, he played, practically the entire game. Mm-hmm. And to see him put in that many minutes, to be physical, especially, listening to the guys over the radio talk about Marcus Kreider, I felt he was impressive for this game against UAB.
And look, that's the beautiful thing about this show. You never know what's going to happen because up to this point, there has never been, because we don't talk about this beforehand, right? We say that almost every time. We don't discuss, like, especially our game ball stuff. We go over some of the stats before we turn on the camera and we get ready to go. But all this stuff, no prompter, it's real.
No.
So far, we have not had both anchors have the same game ball recipient, but that's going to change today. And I think you hit it right on the head because Marcus Kreider was also getting it from me. And I will mention, I'm not going to repeat what you said because you said everything correct, and that's the justification he needs because he did play an excellent game. But I will bring up one more point that you did not mention, and that is he started on the bench.
Yes.
And he came off the bench, and he contributed. He was the second leading scorer behind Jeremy Hollowell coming off the bench. He had 12. Would I have liked to see him perform, better late games? Sure, but I can honestly say that about absolutely everybody on the team because they lost, and you want somebody to step up and make a difference. But if someone's going to have to give the game ball, coming off the bench, second leading scorer, contributed well all game, Marcus Kreider is the guy. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for Primetime Sports Talk. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next time.